Hi there, I'm Dean Heskin, President and CEO of Swiss America Trading, and you are tuned into our podcast, The Secret War on Cash. I have with me my co-host, Chris Agelastos. Chris, good morning. How are you today?
I'm doing great. First day under 100 in a while here, so I'm happy.
Yeah, no kidding. And we needed a little bit of a break. I don't think we're out of the woods yet.
No,
Excuse me, ladies and gentlemen, for my throat. I just had a procedure done yesterday, so I'm a little bit of a frog in my throat. But we're not out of the woods yet. But if we can get to where at least wise, we're capping out at that 100 and getting down into the, I'm going to say 70s at night, but 60s would
yeah,
actually even be fantastic. But
yeah.
we're closer than not. How about that
The
at this
tail end,
point?
tail end of it. I'll take what I can get.
When it comes to the heat, the end draweth nigh. We'll put it that
Yeah,
way. How about that? All right, well, let's
fancy.
talk about some money stuff here. Let's see, this coming from the good old guys at Fox News. The title of this article, A Quiet Rush for Gold is Sweeping the Globe. Here's why countries are stockpiling it. A World Gold Council survey finds a record 45% of central banks plan to add gold amid inflation and geopolitical uncertainty. Very, very true statement. We know this because we followed it in many other contexts, many other news sources and articles. I find it
Yeah,
interesting though that, this is actually news because it's not news, it's olds. I mean, this has
yeah,
been
yeah.
happening steadily for 3 years. I mean, it's always happened, but I mean,
hmm
when I say it's happening, the central banks and governments have been setting records in terms of how much stockpiling of gold that they've been
Yeah,
doing. And, they say in the article here, Chris, a New World Gold Council survey found that 89% of central banks expect their global gold reserves to grow over the next year. Well, that's already been happening. While a record 45% plan to add to their holdings of their own holdings. Central banks are the institutions
hmm
that manage a country's money and financial reserves. So I'm going to continue reading here. For everyday Americans worried about rising prices, growing government debt, and what comes next for the economy, the trend is worth paying attention to. And I completely agree. I know you do as well.
yeah,
But what I found interesting in here as well is that, it talks about all of the uncertainty and, all the different things that, inflation, global instability, economic turmoil. These are all reasons people are doing it.
hmm
But and these institutions. But the interesting thing is, skipping down the article a little bit, Chris, 90% of central banks said gold's performance during times of crisis is one of the main reasons they hold it. However, not however, but it says another 84% cited its role as a long-term store of value and inflation hedge, while 83% said it helps diversify their reserves. And my
yeah,
point in kind of highlighting that, Chris, is it just speaks to the fact, look, it's not just a doom and gloom type asset, which it's been portrayed as for a while by
right.
a lot of people, especially your more conventional investment institutions or firms.
hmm
But, when you start throwing these terms in, long-term store of value, inflation hedge, it helps diversify assets. These are all things that the average American investor, really citizen out there who is planning for retirement or their future, et cetera, these are all terms that they should warmly, excuse me again, warmly
Yeah.
embrace because this is what we all need, and especially at a time like now.
Yeah, I think honestly, I think people need to realize that gold is a lot more like, eating a healthy diet. It's something you're supposed to be doing, and something that we know is time tested and good for you. You shouldn't just wait till you're sick, right, to adjust some things in your diet. And I think that's what it ultimately comes down to in this, and what they're talking about. And you're right, it's not exactly new news. I mean, it says here that 1,000 metric tons annually is what has been purchased over about the last 4 years. So 1,000 metric tons per year over the last 4 years, which is double the previous decade. So
Mm-hmm.
it definitely has stepped up over the last several years, but now they're maintaining it, and it really is just to strengthen and make their economies healthier, like eating a good diet would be good for us. And so it's something everybody should be doing. Now, does it also help you in a crisis? If we go down a doom and gloom path, does it still make sense? Yes, absolutely. But people are finally realizing that this is something that should be incorporated into their everyday life, regardless of what is happening in the world. And during the bad times, it's just going to protect you that much more. And so we're actually even seeing, and I know you know this, but like typically speaking, financial advisors in the past kind of dismiss precious metals allocations.
Right.
They'd say, oh, maybe you should have 2% or 5%. We're actually hearing that a fair amount of advisors now are saying 15, 20, 25% of your money should be protected in physical precious metals. And so it is gaining a lot more attention. It probably is new news to a lot of people, even though we've been obviously following this for years. But it's something that if you're listening to this and you haven't gotten involved yet, it's probably a good time to start paying attention.
Absolutely. And the beauty of it is, as a hedge and getting diversified, et cetera, all comes into play. I mean, you can't. The simple math behind the whole equation is it's been the single greatest performing asset class consistently for like a decade now, if you will.
Yeah.
All things said and done. So
Mhm.
there's not just the protection, but there's also the profit side of it. Well, let's look here at this second article. Gold soars as this week's massive intervention happened because the system is collapsing. So this speaks to what these institutions and central banks are doing, as they talk about here now, that like the system in fact collapsing. And certainly that's not something I want to hear. That's not something
Mhm.
you want to hear. I mean, we've had a tremendous run here in the United States, and there's something to be said for the status quo. However, the status quo is changing very rapidly right in front of our eyes. You look at
Mhm.
employment figures, you look at what's been happening with debts, with deficits, the interest rates and inflation. They may not be moving interest rates, but inflation has become literally an everyday part of every aspect of our life.
Yeah.
And the bottom line is that when you hear, again, there was massive intervention that happened, and these are strong words coming out of King World News here, but like the
Mhm.
system is collapsing. I mean, it literally is crumbling before our very eyes, and it's one of those things where there's one of two ways to deal with it: is just wait to see what happens and then go from there, or be a little more proactive and say, okay, the system's collapsing. A new system will emerge. Lord knows what
Yeah.
that will be. Only time will tell. But the bottom line is that this speaks to the whole reason why these banks and these institutions are buying gold, because with a system that collapses, gold has always been the tether or the backbone to any financial system really in the history of mankind. For the most part, I mean,
Yeah.
I can't speak for jungles in the middle of nowhere or anything like that, but
Right.
civilized or industrialized nations, and not just first world countries, but even third world countries in many
Yeah.
cases.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, gold has always been a major store of wealth. I would say a primary store of wealth for thousands of years. Right. I mean, they read the Bible and they talk about it extensively, right, as part of the financial structure. So, the central banks are merely doing what they need to do to protect themselves. And again, it's the system collapsing doesn't mean the end of the world. It means that the current system goes out and a new system comes in. And we don't know exactly what day that's going to happen or what year that's going to happen. But we know that over time, all financial systems eventually come to a failure point where they need to be revamped and replaced. And that's what a lot of people are worried about. That's what these central banks are protecting against, because they know no matter what happens, as long as they have a good amount of their stores and in physical metal, that they're going to be protected. And I think one of the things that is unique about this article is they're specifically mentioned a little bit about the U.S.'s intervention too with Japan's currency, and basically
Right.
trying to kind of bail them out a little bit. Now, this was a big deal. And I think the last time we had to get involved was in the 90s with their currency. So this isn't an everyday thing. I know a lot of the stuff we talk about, it seems like we're getting rockets fired at us financially, from one direction or another all the time. But this is something that is not an everyday occurrence, and it's just kind of one more nail in the coffin. And obviously they're concerned that if Japan has to liquidate U.S. Treasuries to bail out themselves, then that's also going to bring us down. And it kind of shows how intertwined a lot of our economies are. That we're reliant on other nations' decisions and their economies. Maybe not as much as we are on our own, right? But still to a great degree. So just this general loss of confidence in fiat currencies is making people a bit nervous. And again, why central banks keep picking up more and more metal to kind of hedge their positions.
Sure. Well, and as you mentioned, Chris, the Japanese and the concern the U.S. has about them unloading treasuries.
Mm-hmm.
What's really kind of an interesting kind of slant or perspective on that is the fact that this is what BRICS nations have been doing for a long time now. And, honestly, it's not that Japan is doing anything different. In fact, if anything, they're kind of late to the dance in so doing. And that's why I think it's a very, as concerning as that title is, and maybe some might think that it's a little dramatic to say, how things are crumbling, the system is crumbling. There's probably more truth to it than not. And, again, who knows how it's all going to ultimately, I should say, shake out. But at the end of the day, it's happening. So
that's right.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, well, thanks for tuning in. If you're not subscribed to our podcast, please do so. If you'd like some more information, the secret war on cash, or information on how to diversify your holdings, get into physical gold, the right type of physical gold or silver for you, you can call or text our office at 1-800-289-2646, or you can visit us online at www.swissamerica.com. Both that phone number as well as our website is in the show description, so you can get it there as well. Thanks so much for tuning in. Look forward to talking to you more in the future, and have a great rest of your day.
Yeah, take care.